Alright, so now's the time to make some scripts. So I'm going to right click in here and create, and we're going to make a JavaScript, and we're just going to call it player script. Okay, double click on that puppy. It's going to pop up in mono develop, and then we will go from there. So momentarily, boom, boom, boom. Okay, so first things first, always at the top, we like to add our variable. So I'm going to do a variable, and I'm going to call this my run key, float. All right, so basically this is going to store the value of my key moving left and right, so my horizontal keys, okay? And then I'm going to do a variable of my jump key, and this does basically the same thing, okay? I'll make that a float as well. Probably could just be a boolean, but we'll just do it like that. Now I'm going to do a variable that basically controls my speed of my run. So this is like the multiplier times the horizontal run key. And that's also going to be a float. And I'm going to go ahead and just assign it now, but we can also adjust this later. And I'm going to make it 50. All right, so then we're going to do a variable, and we're going to set a variable for our max speed. So basically the idea is that this way, if you keep pushing to the right or left, eventually the character will go super fast, like faster than we would probably like. So we're going to do this, and it's going to be a float, and this will be equal to 3. So basically the max speed is 3 units. Good, and then we're going to do a variable for my jump power. Basically this is a multiplier for the jump. This will also be a float, and we're going to set this equal to 150. Now the reason why this is larger is because this one's fighting gravity, and also when you jump, it's like bam, it's one hit, it's a single instance, it doesn't keep pushing. Speed will multiply on top of itself, you know what I mean? So that's the reason why. Now we're going to do some variables that are basically going to hold the components of the rigid body and the animator so that we can affect those. So these are going to hold that eventually. They're not holding that right now. Player rigid body, and that's going to be a rigid body 2D, and then we're going to do another variable, player animator, and that's just going to be an animator. Okay, so those are, you can see that these are a little bit different. See how these all like nice and highlight? That's because these are, this is a JavaScript, but these are basically things that are Unity specific, so they aren't going to generally be highlighted. All right, so in the function start, what we're going to do is just use that, because this gets run once in the very beginning, and then that's it. As soon as the script starts, we're going to basically just hook up our variables that we made here, the rigid body one and the animator, and go ahead and store the rigid body and the animator to those variables. So it's just going to be player rigid body, and we're going to assign that. And if you look, I didn't capitalize my B on this one, so that would have caused an error. Player rigid body, and we're going to go, okay, on the game object that this is currently attached to. On that, we're going to use the function or the method component, get component, and the component we want to get dot, and it's going to be the rigid body 2D. That's the component. All right, and this, and that's it. Okay, so that's going to hook up, get the component of player rigid body, and assign it to this. And we're going to do the same thing for the animator, player animator, boom, game object dot get component dot animator, yay, boom, boom, and boom, oops, boom. All right, good. So that's all the start is going to do for us, is just hook up those, okay? And then we're going to use update and fixed update in order to do our other things. Okay, so all right, so in the update, we're going to use this to more or less drive the animation, because update deals with the visual frames. So and since the animation's visual, that's what's playing for us. We're going to do player animator. okay, which we set up there earlier, and dot set bool. All right, so we're going to set the bool of ground. So we're going to say set the bool of ground, and that, if you remember, that was the parameter we made, and we're going to set it to the value of ground, okay, which if you look, I did not actually make that variable up here yet. So we're going to do another variable ground, and that's going to be a boolean. So that was a mistake. Okay. So basically, we're going to say, okay, underneath player animator, there is a function or method that says set a boolean of it, and we're going to set it to ground. Okay, so the ground parameter of that, we're going to set it to the value of ground, which is a boolean, which is whatever the default is currently. So we're going to do another one of these, player animator dot, and this one's going to be set float. Okay, so we're going to set a float this time, and this is going to be on the speed. Okay, and we're going to set that to math f dot abs. Okay, math f dot abs, and then that's going to be input dot get axis, and the axis we're going to get is the horizontal. Okay, boom, and doom. Close that out, not that last one. There we go. So basically what this is saying, okay, says, okay, so player animator set the float of speed, okay, to math f.abs. All right, so I don't really know entirely, but basically what that means is that it's going to set the absolute value. And the reason why is that when we have our input left and right triggers, or not left and right arrows, I can move in a positive 1 or a negative 1. So that's the reason what this will do is actually make it, regardless of whether it's -1 or +1 or -0.25 or whatever, it always is going to give it the absolute value, meaning that it's going to be 1. Even if it's negative, it's still going to be 1. It's still going to be 0.25, because that's what we need in order to set the speed. Because when we set our parameters, we said it had to be greater than a certain speed. We didn't say less than 0.025. We'd have to set another parameter. So this way it just does the absolute, and that's just what this part does. And it's going to be the absolute value of what's in these parentheses, and that's basically the input get axis. So take our input, get the axis of horizontal, and if you remember, if you go into edit, project settings, input, the axis that we're going to be using for our left and right position is going to be horizontal. So that's what it's getting. Okay, that's where that's coming from. All right, good. So that's that. And then we need to do another function for fixed update. So function fixed update, because this is physical, based on the physics. Okay, boom. Okay, tab. All right, so now this is like the one that's gonna be kind of the bread and butter. So let's go up. Okay, so we're gonna say run key. We're gonna assign that the value of input. We're gonna use that input dot get axis, the axis we want to get, which is, if you remember, the horizontal for this one, horizontal. We're gonna set it to the value of that. Okay, which is good. And then we're going to do, using that, we're going to say, okay, player rigid body, that variable we hooked up the rigid body to, I want to, on that, add a relative force, okay, add relative force, and the force we're going to add is going to be a new vector2, because it's 2 vectors, okay, new vector2, and it's going to be the run key times the speed multiplier, okay, if you remember that was our thing, and then 0. And the reason why it's 0 is because it's x and y, and so the horizontal is only going to affect the x. I just want to make it go left and right, not up and down, right? That's going to be by the space bar. So new vector 2, bam. So basically we're saying take that and then apply the horizontal to left and right using that. All right, good. Okay, now we just need to take something to more or less clamp it. So we're going to say if, because I don't want it to go too fast, so I'm going to go if the player rigid body dot velocity. So if you can see this is lowercase, this isn't a method, this is just a property of that rigid body. So it's a velocity dot x, specifically the x velocity, the left and right, is equal to the max speed. And if you remember, we set that to 3. So if it's or I'm sorry, not equal to, if it's greater than max speed. If it's greater than max speed, I want it to do this. And in this case, it's actually, we're just going to set it to that. We're going to do player rigid body dot velocity dot x. We're going to set it equal to max speed. So basically, if it starts to go past max speed, it's going to set it right back down to max speed. So it can never go past max speed. And then to do the next little chunk here, I'm just going to copy and paste this. So Control C or Command C, depending if you're on Mac. And I'm just going to back this up. I'm going to do else if. Okay, and then we're going to say if it's also if it's less than negative max speed, because obviously we can go in the opposite direction. So it could be -3, because that's what we set our max speed up here was 3. So this is if it's greater than 3, set it to 3. This will say if it's less than -3, we're going to set it to negative speed. So if it's going, it won't, otherwise we'd be able to go much faster in the other direction. And then we'll just hit Control S or Command S. I'll click back in here. Hope that we don't get an error. We do. So rigid body 2D does not denote a valid type, blah, blah, blah. So it says it's on line 17. So player, rigid body, game object, rigid body 2D. All right. What did I do wrong? What should it be? Oh, that should be a capital. Rigid body 2D. All right. Save that again. Very particular. Good. All right. So now, if I were to hit play, let's hope. All right. So it's not moving. And the reason why it's not moving is because ground is not on. Oh, yeah, because it's not applied for one. All right, so let's do that first. So I'm gonna take the player script. I'm gonna drop it into scripts so that it's organized. I'm gonna take player script. I'm gonna drop it onto, if it'll let me. I'm gonna drop it onto my player, and then we will hit play, and there we go. Oh, he's getting stuck on the thing there. Okay, but now left and right work. Yay! So there's player script, and I'm gonna pause it here because we did that script in this way. If you didn't want to skip this, you can skip it. All right, awesome.